All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Hope everybody's doing awesome. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE and lead faculty for the cervical and lumbar spine divisions. Great to have you here on Leadership Thursday. Great to have you here as always on the PT on ICE Daily Show. Whether you are watching live, whether you are listening on the podcast, greatly appreciate it. Love hopping on here every morning and rapping with you all. So before we jump in and talk Leadership Thursday, we got to talk Gut Check Thursday. So Gut Check Thursday this week, if you haven't seen the workout posted on Instagram or Facebook, is every 2 minutes for 6 sets. No break between sets. You're going to do 30 air squats, then 15 ab mat sit-ups, and then in your remaining time in that 2-minute block, as many push-ups as possible, right? So your score is going to be push-ups, right? No rest between sets. So once you hit that 2-minute mark, you're jumping right in, air squats again, ab mat sit-ups. However much time you earn, you're knocking out your push-ups. All right? So that's Gut Check Thursday. Please tag us on Instagram. Love seeing all your scores rolling in. Hashtag IceTrained, tag Ice Physio. We'll check you out on social media over the next few days. As far as courses coming up, live course wise, we've got lumbar spine coming up in Charlotte, July 17, 18. July 24, 25, we've got total spine thrust up in Hopewell Junction, New York. And then July 24, 25, we also have lumbar spine going on in Santa Barbara. Online, we just launched a ton of our online courses. The only one I think coming up in the next week for kicking off is July 12th, Fitness Athlete Advanced Concepts. So if you want to jump into that course, this will be your summer opportunity to do so. Keep score. I want to talk about keeping score. So think about Nicole, right? Nicole is what, 36 years old. She's seen you 5 times. She's got a 2 p.m. today. Right, it's 9 a.m. and she's holding her phone, feeling kind of guilty, thinking about canceling, right? She's thinking about canceling. There are a lot of Nicoles, right, that have kind of gotten disengaged in the process, have seen you a handful of times, and are thinking about reaching out and calling it quits, right? We've got to change that. Now, we talk all the time about the test-retest method, right, or building the bike in order to sell people on our values so they stay engaged. Right, but we often phrase it in the light of, if the patient sees they're improving, right, if we're reassessing all the time and the patient sees they're getting better, they stay more engaged in the process and thus they won't cancel. I totally agree with that, right? There's no doubt about it. If you're consistently showing the patient that there's progress, right, and they're getting better, they tend to stay more engaged, they tend to not cancel. But looking at it only from that light is definitely missing the bigger picture. And I know we're missing the bigger picture because a lot of people will ask me, well, what if the patient isn't doing better? And the rub here is that it doesn't matter. That's actually not what it's about, right? It's the act of measuring that matters, not the result of the measurement. The reason Nicole is on the verge of calling is because she's afraid that you're going to waste her time. That is generally the reason that people disengage with the process, right? People value their time immensely, and they should. We all do. She's afraid you're going to waste her time. She's afraid specifically that you don't have a system in place that will detect any changes, or for that matter, a lack of changes. And thus you aren't going to adjust anything, and thus she might waste her time by coming. It's not so much about she feels she isn't getting better, right? And she's concerned that you're not going to notice she isn't getting better, right? And thus you're not going to change anything you're doing about it. If Nicole was absolutely certain, even though she feels like, I'm not really sure I'm getting better, if she knew that when she showed up at 2 o'clock, you had a system in place that was going to detect this lack of noticeable change and you were going to do something about it. If she knew that for sure, then there would be guaranteed value in her time. It's not about the result of the measurement. It's the fact that she knows you're going to measure. She knows you're going to keep score. That's really what patients are looking for. They know that every time you come in, you're going to be keeping score and you're going to be changing something because of the score. If they're getting better, you're going to find ways to double down or amplify what you're doing to get them more better faster. If they are getting worse, you're going to significantly alter what you're doing. If they aren't changing at all, you're going to reinvestigate other areas where maybe you missed something because the area you're treating doesn't seem to be the relevant one. Any of this is going to happen, but something is going to happen. That's the key point, right? That's the concern which is holding the phone. It's not that she's thinking to herself, PT isn't working. She's thinking to herself, this person isn't going to be able to tell if it's working. And because of that, there isn't going to be any change in any direction. That's the concern. So I just don't want to I don't want us thinking about the test, retest, or build the bike concept only from a lens of it shows patients are doing better. That's not what it's about. It's about the concept of always keeping score and holding each other accountable, right? PT and patient, so that every time there's an encounter, there is action, because that score is being monitored so closely. If people know there's other components to this too, beyond just the fact that it keeps them engaged, keeps them coming, lets them know something of value is going to happen, they aren't going to waste their time. If people know that you're keeping score, they are way more likely to do their part in the interim between sessions. There's no question about this, right? And that tends, of course, to result in more improvement, right? When they're more engaged, when they're more compliant, when they're making behavior changes, that tends to result in better progress. Now, importantly, this works better if you are tracking things beyond your asterisk signs that are hard numbers, if you will. Right? Now, you don't have to measure these every single time, but you definitely have to have intervals. And again, very importantly, you and the patient have to know when you're going to be reassessing them, right? That there is a system in place to make sure that we're seeing whether or not things are evolving in any meaningful way, be it better, be it worse. So again, we can take action. Here's a few examples. So when we talk about building a bike, we're generally talking about things like subjective functional asterisk signs, right? What they can do in their personal life that is changing because of the time they're spending with us. And then a couple physical things, right? How much can you turn? What does your ULTT look like? How much can we challenge your nervous system? Those are wonderful. But if in addition to those, which you're testing every day, and oftentimes the physical ones in session, if you can have some harder number stuff that you're testing at intervals, that this really adds to the accuracy of your score and to the engagement of the patient. A few examples, right? Assessing strength, right? So physical strength. That might be 1 rep max, but that might be 10 rep max, right? You can't hide from strength. Mitch Babcock told me one time, we were going to a workout years ago, here in Colorado, and we were talking about whether or not we've been doing fitness and whether we were keeping up with our programs. And he was like, well, the good news is we're going to find out right now because the barbell never lies. Right? You can either move it or you can't. And there's some real honesty to that, right? Like the barbell never lies. If you're reassessing things like strength every 3 weeks and you and the patient have specific goals on where they want to be, you're going to get some very clear data, way more so than subjective reports of, how are you feeling? Not that that's not valuable, just that it's great to have some really hard numbers that you all know you're going to be looking at, right? That you have to train to maintain. It's wonderful to have those things on board as well, right? So things like strength, other components of fitness. Think about if you have an assault bike in the gym, right? Tracking things like average RPMs in 15 seconds, average RPMs across 3 minutes, average RPMs over 10 minutes, looking at more like your power versus your endurance, maybe what the line is between those points. You can't lie to the assault bike. You can either get it spinning that much for that long or you can't. And you're going to be held accountable to that grading, that very accurate, honest, sometimes too honest grading scale of your fitness. If you all know you're going to be looking at that, everybody's more engaged when you're 9 days away trying to hold the line or get closer to where that objective goal was set. Additionally, just thinking more about keeping score and how engaging it is and how valuable it is. Your mental health as a practitioner, we never talk about this stuff. Your mental health as a practitioner is protected by keeping score. If you think about the times that burned you out, that zapped you, if you will, the worst, the one that tends to be guilty of that, the worst feeling is when you're wondering, am I really doing anything to help this person? That tends to be the space that is the most emotionally draining. If you're clearly making somebody worse, right, you're either going to change providers, significantly change directions, or they're going to drop off your schedule. If you're making somebody better, few things fill the bucket like making somebody better. It's when you don't know, and so you're not sure what to say. You almost feel bad. Should I keep them on my schedule? If you are keeping score and you're doing it accurately and methodically, it's almost impossible to wind up in that spot of, I wonder if I'm helping. When you're tracking things like their sleep quantity and quality for behavior change, their strength, their fitness on the assault bike across those different modes, if you're tracking, the data either says that we are doing something meaningful or we are not. But where you're never going to wind up in is, I wonder if I am. That's the beauty of having some of these hard numbers and some of these goals that are really well carved out with our patients, is you never wind up in the space of, I wonder if I'm doing anything. I hope that hits. I hope that those of you who thought we were only talking about building the bike from a lens of, if we can show the patient they're getting better, they'll buy in, now understand it's not about that, although it's awfully nice when it winds up that way. Building the bike is about the system of keeping score so that every time there's an encounter, there's an action, because that is what ultimately creates guaranteed value. That's what lets that person know, if I go spend my time there, I'm going to get something from it. Regardless of whether I'm getting better, seeing no change, or getting worse, it's going to be acknowledged and adjustments are going to be made. That is what your patient is afraid isn't going to happen. If you tell them, look, every time you come in, we're going to be keeping score, right? We're going to be keeping score in between sessions with the asterisk signs we're tracking, and we have these sort of overarching goals of strength, of fitness, of behavior change, of sleep. You've got that wearable. Every 3 sessions, we're going to be reassessing those touch points, and we're going to see whether or not we are meaningfully moving in those directions. We are keeping score. We will never wonder if the time we're spending is doing anything. We will notice right away if it isn't, and adjustments will be made. But the one thing that will never happen is nothing. Give that some thought. Keeping scores way beyond showing people they're getting better. It's a system of accountability that matters on so many levels beyond that and protects from so many of the things we suffer in physical therapy. I hope that makes sense. Hit me up with any questions, team. Wonderful to see you. Thanks, Tyler. Wonderful to see you all here. I've actually got another one coming up on keeping score from a very different perspective of life that I'll share in a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to that as well. Take care, everybody. Awesome to see you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.